People in the Charleston area are quite familiar with the region's two very visible lighthouses at Sullivan's Island and Morris Island, but many residents and visitors may know nothing or little about the area's two other lighthouses that are much more remote and that have been long inactive.
We can take about 40 people on the big boat to start off with. That's going to be a longer trip out to the island. For sort of the more vigorous folk, we'll put on the smaller boat and run out pretty quick and then turn around and come right back to get whatever overflow that we have.
What you're going to see in this video is a fun excursion to aptly named Lighthouse Island and its two historic structures, the short red one that was built way back in 1827 and its tall replacement constructed next to it 30 years later in 1857.
Alright, we can go ahead and take 8 more so we can balance the load out.
Twice a year in the spring and fall, the Sewee Visitor and Environmental Center offers these lighthouse trips. The cost is $35 per person, and you need to call ahead to reserve a spot. After meeting first at the Sewee Center for an informative slideshow about the lighthouses, participants then drive to McClellanville to board boats belonging to Coastal Expeditions. The smaller boat that my wife and I boarded took only about 15 minutes to get to the Lighthouse Island, and a pleasant trip it was on the waterways of the Cape Romain National Wildlife Refuge.
Ooh, I got that one.
The larger, slower ferry takes about 30 minutes to reach the island. You're encouraged to wear old shoes that you don't mind getting wet and muddy, and we see why when we leave our boat and walk a narrow plank to get on land.
Alligators.
Then it's a short walk from the shore to the island's interior. In just a few minutes, the star attractions are in sight.
There it is.
At 65 feet, the 1827 lighthouse is a short one and wasn't considered to be especially effective even back then. Today it does have historic significance in that it is considered the oldest cone-shaped lighthouse still standing in America. Its short stature and whale oil wick lamp light had its limitations and was replaced in 1857 by a 150-foot octagonal structure with a prism lens that projected light a much greater distance, 19 miles. This lighthouse is credited with dramatically reducing the number of shipwrecks off Cape Romain during its 90 years of service. For visitors, there are a few paths to and from the lighthouses, and that's about it. Thick vegetation limits exploration around the rest of the island.
What kind of wildlife have you seen out here over the years?
Well, there's one old goat that lives out here.
An old goat?
Yep.
An old what?
A goat.
Oh.
There aren't any deer, squirrels, possums on the island. There.
How about snakes?
Some snakes. I haven't seen any in years, but there are moccasins and copperheads out here.
One of the best parts of the tour is Tommy Graham and the knowledge he shares about the Cape Romain lighthouses and this small island. He and his family, more than anyone, saved this place. For decades, Graham has worked vigilantly to repair and restore the structures and maintain the grounds and paths as much as limited funding and manpower have allowed. Back at the Sewee Center, Graham gives a detailed and interesting slideshow covering the history of the lighthouses. Then he rides with visitors on the boats, taking us to the site, answering questions, and sharing stories.
Civil War.
Not much. It was abandoned. Nobody did anything here. It wasn't strategic for either side. They tore down the Charleston Light because they were afraid that the Federals would make some use of it, so they destroyed it. And this one was just basically mothballed. And I don't know, I can't find any account of anybody living out here for any purpose related to the war. I've found lots of accounts of like the blockade was out here. You would, on a given day, you would see blockade ships out there.
Well, we're having a great time out here seeing these old lighthouses, but we can start to hear thunder in the distance. There's some, and we've also spotted some lightning, so we might have to go hide out in the inside the red lighthouse.
All aboard!
Fortunately, the weather held and we all were able to spend a couple hours on the island. On the way back to McClellanville, we did have rain, and those of us in the small skiff got pretty wet. But it in no way put a damper on a great day learning about and seeing these two old lighthouses. The excursions are usually just twice a year in May and October. Contact the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's Sewee Visitor and Environmental Center for details at this website or this phone number.